Hi guys, welcome back to Hear Me Out. I'm E.
I'm D.
And today we're going to not talk celebrity stuff like we usually do, but instead we're going to talk about something that's going viral on the internet. And it's apparently this girl, I haven't seen it. That's the disclaimer. This girl, and then she has like what, a 52-part series saying, "Who the F did I marry?"
Yeah.
So he is completely obsessed with it, and so is the internet. She's going to
Yeah.
explain what happened here, and you're literally going to get my blind reaction and, of course, her thoughts on the whole subject. And guys, let us know what you think in the comments about this whole series because apparently it's a shit show.
That's definitely a mild way to put it. If
How bad is this?
we'll see how you feel after I tell you.
Okay.
Okay. So the woman telling her story, her TikTok name is ReesaTeesa, and so I'm sure by now most of you have already heard of her or seen her or like heard about the series. It is, I believe, 50 parts, but there's like some. It might be 52 because there's like some different things that she kind of added, like not an interlude, but kind of interludes. And also she did some parts where she kind of like recapped or explained a few things. So anyway, this woman decides to tell the story about her marriage, her first and only marriage. So back in 2020, March of 2020, we all know the pandemic began. But she met this guy prior to the pandemic beginning. She technically met him on two different dating sites, but she didn't know that at the time. So first, she thought she met him through Facebook because I think Facebook was doing some kind of dating thing when the pandemic thing started. So anyway, so she met him through there, but turns out they had also matched on Hinge, but he was just going by a different name. So he had like a nickname in
Oh,
on
okay.
Hinge, but then like a real name on Facebook, something along those lines, right? Okay, so anyway, that happens, and just thinks it's like a funny thing or whatever. He asked her out on a first date to the Cheesecake Factory. They were gonna meet up. On her way there, she gets a flat tire. She calls him and she's like, "Hey, I'm gonna be late, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "Where are you? I'm coming to you." So she sends him the details. He goes, he changes her tire and tells her, "Well, you can't really be driving on that flat," and takes her to go get a new tire that I believe he purchased for her. And they go on their date, I believe. I want to say they do end up going on their date. Anyway, night went great, and hello, he paid for her tire. I was like, "Oh, this is interesting. That's nice."
Okay.
Then they were like constantly talking, seeing each other, and everything. But Georgia, just like most of the world, was going to be shutting down 2 weeks after they met because of the pandemic. So ReesaTeesa is very clear that she was going to tell the whole story, even if she looked bad, red flags and all. She said that even though they'd only been talking for 2 weeks, they discussed where they were going to quarantine together. So whether they were going to stay with him or stay with her. So here's the story of Legion. That is what she calls her ex-husband.
Why Legion?
She hasn't, I don't know if she's explained it. She didn't explain it in the series. I'm not sure if she's done a follow-up on that, but I'd have to look for it. So Legion told her that this is all from like the first phone call, first date, whatever. He told her how he used to live in California. He was married. His wife at the time had 2 kids, but they were like practically his kids and he loved them and all that stuff. And even though they divorced, he was still, close to the kids. And like he had to divorce her because he caught her cheating and she wanted to like take his money and all this stuff. Anyway, they lived in California, San Diego, I believe. He said he worked out there and that he used to play arena football. Whatever that means, still don't know. Anyway, so he left and moved to Georgia. And in Georgia, he supposedly had the job of regional manager of a condiment company. He claimed the condiment company was looking for a home for him. In the meantime, he was staying at some like little studio apartment, just tiny little thing. So of course, Reese is like, we can't stay at a tiny little studio when she's got a 3-bedroom home she's renting.
Okay.
So he moves in, right? But now, in the span of just like a couple days, a couple weeks, or even the first month, they discussed how they're looking for love, they're looking for marriage. If they're dating to get married. So this is important to her because she's religious and she doesn't like the idea of living in sin. So, whatever, they're together, you know, and he's supposedly this regional manager. He tells her how he has like this big family. He's got, I think he said, two brothers and two sisters from both his parents, but that his dad had two other sons prior to marrying the wife. He's usually on the phone every single morning with his older brother for at least 30 minutes to 45 minutes. She made it a point to say that he's doing these phone calls in front of her. So she's hearing him on the phone, blah, 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 right? Okay. So he's doing all these calls. He's talking to all his family, and she loves that because that means that he loves his family. And so she's a family-oriented person. She's introduced him to her family once things get a little bit lighter, not really lighter, but you know how it was with COVID, where it's like, well, if you are not symptomatic, whatever, whatever, you guys can like family, whatever. So they did that. So he met her family. I think she ended up meeting like an aunt of his or something like that. But so supposedly his company was looking for a home for him, right? But whatever happened because of COVID, I don't know if it fell through or what the deal was, but point is, he told her that he had been approved by Chase Bank, and he shows her the letter for a $700,000 or $750,000 mortgage. She sees the letter. Oh, okay, dang, okay. So then, they continue to be together by, I want to say she said maybe May or so, either May or early June or something like that. She finds out she's pregnant. So this is all.
Okay, hold on. Let me get this straight. So the pandemic happened. So that was like what, February, March?
March of 2020, which is when she met him, early 2020 March.
Okay. So by May, she's already pregnant.
Yes, something around this place. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but in all of this stuff, right? Because she's pregnant and everything, she says she doesn't want to live where she's living at, or she doesn't want to raise a kid where she's living at, and that. So, like, he, of course, says, well, I mean, let's look for a house, because I don't know what happened with his job, supposedly buying him a house, whatever. So then now they're looking for a place, right, and find a realtor. Realtor's calling her like, hey, are you guys putting in this offer or what? Because they found like a nice home, and they had to do like a virtual tour. And then so she's asking Legion, like, okay, so did you put in the offer? Yeah, I did. And she said, but the realtor called me and you didn't. He's saying you didn't. And he's like, I did it with my friend. My friend's a realtor. I wanted to give him the business. Okay. So are we under contract? Did they accept the offer? Yeah, they accepted the offer, but they got to do inspections and blah, blah, blah. Mind you, this is COVID. So things are backed up. Things keep mishaps keep, occurring. And so she's like, that it was strange, but okay, she's pregnant, of course. So she's gonna do what she's got to do, like stick it out basically. Cause there's a few little like holes in some of his stories, but whatever. So anyway, this is all going on. She's with this guy, right, Legion, and Legion is like, doting and like kind of, being a good, I guess, partner. But there's sometimes, like I said, there's some holes in his story.
Is he like really bombing her?
I don't know. I guess it could kind of seem that way in a way. But she also pointed out that he's supposed to be a regional manager, but he's going to work every single day in like these cargo pants, dark cargo pants, rubber-soled shoes, and what looks like a polo, which is a uniform. So, she asked him about it, and he said, well, I'm on the floor all the time. I can't be in my suit and tie and da-da-da-da-da. So, I'm out on the floor with the people. I'm checking out the condiments. I'm checking out the stuff, the work product, right? Supposedly.
In rubber boots?
Rubber-soled shoes. So, again, just like kind of excusing some of these things away because she's pregnant. So, cut to June, I believe she said, she started having some issues, and she went to the doctor. They did like an ultrasound, and At first, they said nothing was wrong, but then they called her and told her that there was no heartbeat, so that the pregnancy was not going to be viable. So of course she tells him, and go to the doctor. They give her options. So one of the options that she did not want to do and refused to do was a surgery because, of course, COVID, right? So she didn't want to be in the hospital alone, COVID. So she did the at-home pill to expel, and all that. So she did it, but she said it was the most painful thing in the world. She would never recommend anybody doing it. She suffered that night. And Legion was ready to take her to the hospital, but she woke up feeling a little bit better. However, I think she still ended up having to go to the doctor and found out that it didn't fully pass. The pregnancy didn't fully pass. So she was still going to need to do the surgery. And during all of this stuff, right, she'd been checking Zillow for that house because it's supposed to be under contract. And it's sad. It was under contract.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, it did. So, it's under contract. Anyway, so then she ends up, having to go in for the surgery. She tells Legion, you got to pick her up, be there with her, pick her up. He tells her that he's up for a promotion for VP of the condiment company. So he can't be there that day.
Okay.
But that his new position comes with an executive assistant. So if she needs anything, she can call the executive assistant. And he also tells her, my sister can take you and pick you up from the hospital. And she's like, no, I haven't met your sister. Wow, this is a personal thing, blah, blah, blah. And so she ends up telling her friend to take her. Her friend takes her. But Legion is still supposed to pick her up. She texts him before going into the surgery. And the assistant says, he's in a meeting, but if you need me to get him, I'll get him. I'm so sorry you're going through this. And so she's like, no, you don't have to get him. When she gets out, she's wondering where he's at. She's supposed to be in recovery for an hour and a half at most. And the nurses are like, yeah, we called your fiance. He's on his way. He didn't get there till 3.5 hours later. And she remembers hearing the nurses talking because she couldn't keep her eyes open, but she could hear. And the nurses were like, what's going on with the fiance? I guess they called him 3 different times. He didn't answer once, and the other time he was saying he was going to be there. He was going to be there. He was on his way. But, he didn't work more than, I guess, 45 minutes to an hour away. So he didn't show up till however. Anyway, so he picks her up, takes her home, and calls her mom and her aunt to say that, she's home. She didn't find out until sometime later that apparently he told her mom and her aunt not to answer or not to call her, not to bother her for about a week, which she's like, my black mama and my black auntie are not going to listen to that. Of course they're going to check on me. So it was strange, right? But again, she's trying to excuse these things. Anyway, somewhere in all of this.
How old is he?
I want to say she's got to be maybe in her 30s. I don't know how old she would have been at that time. And with him, I'm not sure either. Maybe 30s, 40s, around there. So, anyway, during all of this, he tells her that his grandmother passed away from COVID and he was inconsolable, while they're together, that she passed away. Then he also tells her that his uncle passed away from COVID, all of this stuff, right? So she ends up checking Zillow one of these days. I can't recall the exact time frame. She ends up checking Zillow. The house is no longer available. So she's calling him, what's going on? Oh, well, some things just weren't good with the inspection. So, I had to pull the offer or something like that. This is after she'd already called the realtor that sold the house, not one that they're affiliated with. And she gets information that apparently it'd been under contract and it was sold to an older white couple this entire time. So he never had it under contract. And she has no idea who this realtor friend is. But, she's trying to excuse things or whatever. And it seemed like every time she would kind of question him, he would pull some kind of stunt to reel her back in. For example, telling her he was going to get her a new car. So he takes her to the Audi dealership, the BMW dealership, all these things because he apparently can afford to get her a car like that, right? Mm-hmm. I think he ends up putting her in a Honda or something like that. But anyway, she ends up getting a car eventually after I don't know how long. And he was going to help pay the car note. Also, when he moved in, he started paying all the bills, the rent, the utilities, all that. She was just taking care of her car note that she had at the time and some other things. But like, he was taking care of all these things. So, anytime she would kind of doubt like the veracity of his story, it's like, but how would he be able to like, afford this or that? He had also told her that thanks to his arena football gig, he had enough money saved in different accounts. He had his checking account, his savings accounts with, I guess, Chase. He had a US bank account or something like that, and an offshore account that had a bulk of his money. Because his uncle told him that you needed to have some money put to the side because of taxes or something like that. Okay. So she's excusing a lot of these things, right? Because think about it. How's he going to afford all like the bills? And then he's also going to help her pay a car note? Like,
Well, that does. I mean, it's plausible because he's saying that he's now a VP in rubber boots. I mean, so technically, he's making that VP guap.
right. And
But
he had shown her the letter that supposedly said what he would be getting paid as the VP.
And the pre-qualification from
exactly.
And, I feel like, okay, so as of right now, all right, she's excusing it. Us girls or guys, sometimes we look the other direction over some inconsistencies.
Yeah.
As soon as he would have said or would have told me offshore account, I would have skedaddled. Because that is some telenovela, like blacklist, mafioso kind of thing. And, you can't hide from the IRS. I don't want them kind of problems. That was the end of that relationship. But go on.
Ma'am, she said she was going to be honest.
Uh-huh.
She also said this was the United Nations of red flags and she was colorblind. Her words.
Well, colorblind people, can't they see green and red?
Girl, this is what she said. I don't know.
Okay, go ahead.
So now, we're like going, I think, into early fall and all that stuff, and like some stuff is, like not really like adding up, and he tried to say, let's, look for another house. This time she was gonna be involved, she was gonna, she'd be involved with the realtor and all that stuff. So okay. I think this is in the fall. They find a house and he wants to make a cash offer. He doesn't want to use the Chase mortgage, whatever. He wants to do a whole cash offer. Offer of, I think it was about $700,000. Okay. So the realtor goes ahead and, lets them know. And I think the sellers were like, okay, yeah, we need proof of funds though. So then the realtor's like, that's on me. I should have done that due diligence and before I presented the offer, but yeah, we should. And so then that he said, no, he's not doing that. So then, the realtor was like, I'll work with you. You just need to show me, I can back it up, blah, blah, blah. No.
I mean, but if you want, okay.
He was saying no. No. So she, at this point, I think they had looked at 2 or 3. They had looked at tons of houses, but this was like maybe the third realtor that they were working with, second or third realtor they were working with. So at this point, no, this was the second one. At this point, she's like, if he's not, what are we supposed to do here? So of course, the sellers were like, you have until such and such time to accept. If you don't, then, and they did not accept, and he did not show no proof of funds. So the realtor was like, I'm sorry, I can't, there's nothing else that I can do, blah, 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 blah. Whatever. That was done. So I think the next realtor that they had talked to immediately was like, okay, I'm going to need proof of funds. He said, no, okay, I can't work with you. So that person was smart. But anyway, so this is all happening and it's getting close to the holidays and she's like, okay, she can't. She's like, I don't want to look into no more houses. I don't know. Like, I'm done. We can talk about it like into the new year. I want to enjoy the holidays, whatever. So I don't know if it was in the holidays or right before they got engaged. This is one of the parts where I was kind of like, really, ma'am? But okay.
Mhm.
Again, this is COVID. You don't want to be alone. You're dating to get married. You've been with this man. He's paying your bills. You kind of have a little doubts or whatever, but you're sticking it out. Anywho, they get engaged and they decide to, I think it's at the beginning of the new year, so early January. They decide to go to the courthouse. They get married.
Mhm.
She said that for 2 weeks, things were good. And then a light flip, like just happened. Like light switch just went off. And he like stopped wanting her or wanting to be with her intimately, like out of nowhere. And she said that he started making comments that he never would before. So she was working at that time. I want to say is at a state trooper's office or something along those lines. She was a civilian. She wasn't a cop or anything, but he would make comments about how she loves working out there because she loves working with men or something like that, or like all these little like different things, that just were like weird to her. Then she finds out he was in the shower. She decides to go through his phone and she's like, ladies, I don't recommend you ever go through somebody's phone. She finds his Facebook Messenger has, I think, 4 different women that he was talking to. One of which he was pretty much exchanging explicit stuff with, And so she confronted him and he tried to say, like, no, no, I messed up, but nothing happened, blah, 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 excuses. So she says marriage counseling because she married him. She's religious. She. Want to do divorce. Anyway, goes to marriage counseling with a priest, with her pastor, or priest, I can't recall, and the wife of the pastor.
And they said run away.
And they say, y'all ain't gonna make it a year.
Ooh.
Um, because they talk about the whole thing, and Legion says, I said I was sorry. I mean, at this point, it's on you, or it's your choice, or something like that, right? Something along those lines. I can't keep apologizing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the pastor's wife is like, "Yeah, I ain't gonna make it a year. You're having these kind of problems, like a couple weeks after you got married." Okay. So anyway, that all happens. And he like then tries to come back with some like grand gesture or whatever and wants to start looking for homes again. But she's not excited.
I already gave up on this home.
Exactly. She's not excited. So I guess he didn't seem to like that reaction, right? Like he wanted some kind of reaction from her.
Mm-hmm.
So then not long after, he calls her while she's at work and says, "Hey, some guy came looking for you." And she's like, "What guy?" And then he's like, "I don't know. I think it was your ex." She's like, "What?" And so, like, he just was like saying that this guy pulled up in a black Dodge Charger, like, backed up into her driveway like he'd been there before and came out looking for her. And he said, she's not here. So he left. So when she got home, because she's, of course, racking her brain, who could have possibly. Anyway, so then when she gets home, she's like, okay, what did he look like? What was he wearing? Da, 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 da. And then he's just like, I don't like your reaction. It's a little suspect. Like, basically, what has she been doing? So she decides, without him knowing, to contact her neighbor who has a Ring camera. Can you let me know if a black Dodge Charger pulled up to my driveway between such and such time? Neighbor eventually gets back to her. Ain't nobody was in your driveway. Nobody was there. She doesn't say nothing to Legion. She leaves it alone. Then at some point, she's always had a dream of going to London and Paris. He knows this. So at some point, she comes home and he's got a whole spread on the kitchen counter, I think, which is like an itinerary for a trip to London. All these things planned out. No plane ticket, but like an itinerary. He tells her he's going to take her to London. And she's, like happy for, a moment or whatever. She did say that she later realized that he got some kind of sick joy out of watching her excited for things he was never going to do for her.
For real.
So, yeah. So now we come to who the F did she marry? The real Legion.
Mm-hmm.
She decides at some point, I don't know if it was around this time or before, to call San Diego State, right? Because he claims he went to school there and that he played arena football. San Diego don't have no information on him. She tells him that, like, well, what's going on? They don't have no information. He's like, well, my dad, who was a retired policeman, he paid for me to be a private citizen, so they would never divulge my information. Okay, this is what he said.
Okay. Okay.
Then, um, she decided, like, he had at some point he had taken her to a cemetery to show him where his grandmother was buried, and it was like supposedly like the family plot or whatever. She ends up like finding the obituary, not for the grandmother but for the mom, and there it says that she survived by Legion, his two brothers, and their spouses. Apparently Legion had another wife, and it's not the name of the woman that he said is his ex-wife. It's a whole nother woman. She has no idea who that is. And then she's like, but where are the sisters? He said he had two sisters. He's been talking to, I forget the names, Kim, and I don't remember the other one. He's been talking to them. I've heard him talking to them. What? She's confused. So, anyway, she ends up, because of course she's going down now a rabbit hole. She ends up looking through his phone, I think, one more time, and finds that he's been texting with a woman that she believes is of the oldest profession, because she's giving him amounts for services. So yeah, yeah. And after some of those messages, he would be like, "Oh, thank you, that was so great. Can't wait to do it again." Yeah, yeah. So she's, now, like, she's looking through all
He
these.
had money for that, but he ain't have no money to buy her a plane ticket.
Well, apparently it's a cheap job because she was charging $40 for handwork and $60 and $80 for the other part, with or without the glove. So
Okay.
anyway, yeah. So that was that was part of it, right? And so at some point she also finds out that he's using possibly two different social security numbers, because on their marriage license he wrote down one social. That's how she did a background check on him.
Mm-hmm.
In hindsight, she should have done it day one, but whatever. So she ran a background check. Nothing came back from that background check except for places he's lived. He's originally from Philly, so Philly's on there. Georgia, where they live, and Rhode Island. Nowhere does it say California.
Mm-hmm.
No. Okay, whatever. But at some point, after they've already been married, she tells him that, she wants to look for another job. This is when he tells her, like, you're not leaving that place. He laughs in her face. You're not leaving that place. You love it there. You love working with those guys. So this motivates her to find another job. She ends up finding another job, a better job, and this other job requires, like, background information, including of your spouse. So she needs his social. At first he tells her no. Then he writes it down, and she realizes that ain't the same social she wrote down when she saw the marriage certificate. She finds a copy of the marriage certificate, or the marriage license, I'm sorry, and realizes that it's some numbers are different. So she does another background check. This background has criminal history. Mm-hmm. And the divorce paperwork between him and the wife that he claimed he had in California, the one he did tell her about, and he didn't file, she filed.
Okay.
And she didn't ask for no spousal support or nothing like that. In fact, he submitted a paper stating he was too poor to pay for the divorce. So this is all weird.
Wait, so he did live in California?
No. This is filed in Georgia.
Okay.
This paperwork is filed in Georgia.
Okay.
The information of the ex-wife is on the paperwork, like a phone number, all this other stuff. So she calls her, and the woman answers. Oh man! And she's like, everything Legion said is a lie. Whatever he told you is a lie. And she's like, she started asking her, okay, well, did y'all live in California? No, Legion ain't never left the East Coast. Oh, okay. Prior to her calling this woman, though, like maybe, I don't know how long, not long before, he had told Reesa that the stepdaughter he had died from COVID, and that he needed to send $2,000 to the ex-wife for the funeral services. Keep that in mind.
Uh
So when
huh.
she's talking to the ex-wife is like, no, that's not true. And at first she didn't even recognize the name she said, because he doesn't go by the name that she's been calling him. And then she also says that yeah, he was a liar, and he, basically was a deadbeat. He would lie about so many things, blah blah blah. And towards the end of the conversation, she decides to ask about the daughter. But she didn't have the heart to say Legion said your daughter was dead. She's just like, hey, how's your daughter? She's fine. Okay. He lied and told her that the daughter died. Daughter ain't died. She
So
didn't say that to the woman.
she lent him $2,000, huh?
Basically, $2,000. That was supposed to be from their, I think, from their joint account. Whatever.
Okay.
So,
That went to him probably, or whatever the friend.
whatever
That
Legion did. Yes.
okay. Uh huh.
So yeah. So of course she's like just at a loss. By this point, she's like, it's time to basically like call it quits.
Yeah.
Um, and she talked to her pastor, and basically, yeah, they said, yeah, like kind of like okayed it in a way, I think. So she goes to him because apparently at some point in the spring, I think, of 21, he got some kind of knee injury. So he would like be laid up in bed. Oh, he left the VP job to go work at Apple, by the way. Some kind of IT work. Um, yeah. And he was laid up because he couldn't walk, he couldn't move, something about the knee or whatever. She said that something else must have been wrong with him, because when she met him, he was like a size 3X. By the time that he was laid up, he looked to be about 1X. And it's not like he was doing something to lose the weight. Something was going on. Some people online say the demons were being exercised through the knee, but that's just a whole other story. So she tells him it's over and he needs to go. And he's like, he ain't going nowhere. Yes, you are. And, she said she's very calmly having this conversation with him and all that. He decides to call his auntie. She decides to call her mama. They're on the phone. And he tells the auntie, yeah, she kicking me out. I don't even know. She says I lied to her. I ain't never lied to her. This set this girl off like there was no tomorrow. She said she was going to like murk him. Like, I'm not even gonna say the full word. She was seeing red. You remember Uno? She was seeing red. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
like a year in already, probably, right?
This is a year and 3 months after they started, because they started March of 2020. This is now June of 2021. This is
Okay.
6 months after they got married.
Okay.
So she's like, basically, he needs to get the F out, blah, 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 blah. And he's just like, like trying to like say all these things. And eventually, like, she looks like she's looking for weapons. And so at this point, she says one last thing, like, get your ass up out of here. And he finally does it. He takes 2 bags with him and kicks him out, right? She ends up figuring out the paperwork. I think she paid for some services or whatever, so she could do the divorce paperwork and all that. She needs him to like sign the paperwork. So 2 weeks after she kicked him out, they meet up at a UPS so he can sign and do it in front of a notary. She says when she sees him, he looks like homeless. He smells. He's still wearing the same clothes she kicked him out in, and
Oh.
now he looks. Yeah, now he looks like he's a size large or medium. Like, she's like, he hasn't been eating or anything. So he ends up signing the paperwork. She says he didn't read it. In the paperwork, it said that everything he left at the house belongs to her now. So those 2 bags he left with, that's it. And the car, that's it. So when they're leaving, she's like, I gave him $6, told him to get some nuggets or something. Because, yeah, he didn't look like he'd been eating. So, anyway.
And that was too nice.
That was way too nice. Way too. But anyway, but there's more. Because we still don't know who Legion fully is.
Uh-huh.
So, she gets a call not long after she kicks him out. I want to say maybe a week or so after she kicks him out, from a cousin of his, of Legion's, that lives in Philly. She gets a Facebook Messenger message or whatever. They end up talking, and she's like, "Yeah, my cousin's out here trying to like sleep on people's couches, but I don't trust him. So what really happened? He stays lying. So what really happened?
Oh.
Because he tells them that she cheated on him, and he caught her cheating on him with a police officer, or with some kind of officer she worked at, and that the officer pulled out a gun on him, and so he wanted to file a complaint to get the officer fired. And Reesa tells the cousin, no, like this is what happened. And so then she starts telling her like, well, what else did he say or whatever. So she's like, well, he said that his grandma died from COVID. She's like, our grandma died in 2008. Oh, well, goddamn. He said his uncle died from COVID. Our uncle died in 2015. Well, he says he has two brothers, two sisters. Sisters? He ain't got no sisters. And then she's like, but he was talking to such and such and such and such. She's like, I don't know that person. But Kim is my daughter, and they haven't talked in 20 years. And so she tells her, like, he talks to his brothers, and he talks to his older brother every single day in the morning. I'm in front of me. And she's like, that's interesting. He lives down the street. I'm going to ask him because he's been beefing with him for years. And I was like,
moly.
Then, and I'm going to give you a quick little side note. I'm literally driving home when I hear this part, and I'm holding on to the wheel, but I'm like, the younger brother is not younger. It's an older brother by 20 minutes, and it's a twin. He's got a twin. And I'm here like telenovela status, full blown, like usurpador, full blown. So she's like completely baffled, bamboozled, like just what? Anyway, so the cousin is going to put her in touch with the older brother, the one he claims he talks to every single day. Older brother, she talks to him.
The twin.
No, not the twin. The actual older brother. So there's an older brher, then there's the twins. The twin he said was younger, but technically he's older by like 20 minutes. Okay. So anyway, he talks to the actual older brother. She talks to him, and he's like, I haven't talked to him in 5 years or something like that. I wouldn't be talking. She's like, but I would hear. I don't know who he was talking to, but he wasn't talking to me. And then he confirms, that like they don't have no sisters. And she says he said that he has two other brothers from his dad. Basically, he lied on his dead daddy because he's like, we don't have no other brothers. My dad did not have no kids on my mama like that. Then, here's the kicker. The twin is a VP of his company and has a wife and kid, I think, or something like that, and basically been living a good life. So he was trying to emulate his twin's life.
Oh.
Like, basically steal the life.
Yeah.
And the brother was like, I didn't know he was married. I didn't know anything about you. Blah, blah, blah. Like,
usurpadora type of thing.
Ma'am. So, Legion is a pathological liar, full-blown narcissist, obviously got some issues. And the brother's just like, no. Basically, like, I don't know who he was talking to. He wasn't talking to me. And so she also finds out, like, that he had been married to another woman years and years before, like what was mentioned in the obituary. They actually they both filed, I think Legion did file for divorce against her, but they had to get a protective order against one another. It was that bad. And so, like, Legion, after all this, was still trying to talk to her to, like, go back and move in. And he ends up telling her, I think weeks after, or I'm not sure. So this all happened in June, right? That she signed all the stuff and the paperwork is signed. I think by July or August, he's like telling her, in August, he's telling her, well, I've been talking to a friend of mine, and a friend of mine said that I could still live there. You can't kick me out. That's our marital home. Da 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 da. She calls around to her cop friends, talks to a captain, all that, and they're like, well, technically, yeah, he's right. Like, and so if he shows up, we'd have to let him in the house. And she, at this point, is freaking out. Like, she was, like, 2 weeks away from moving. She had finally got her another place. And so she wants nothing to do with him. So they're like, you can either stay there or you can go and stay somewhere else. But he's allowed to be there because the divorce hadn't been finalized. She was still waiting for the judge to sign the order. So, like, anyway, he ends up showing up at our home. Come to find out, the captain tells her, let him go because he has a warrant out. So when he gets there, they'll arrest him and he ain't got no more marital rights to the home. So she's
A
like,
warrant for what? For his arrest? What did he do?
yes, a warrant for his arrest for, I don't know if it was like probation, skipping probation. I'm not sure exactly what it was. But so they take him off to jail and, like she wants nothing to do with him, of course. She like is just like wanting to get out. She still got, I think, a few days left or like a week left before she could move. Her mom and her aunt had been I think they had been like watching the proceedings because it was still through Zoom. The warrant had expired, so he was going to be released. She was supposed to move August 31st, I believe. He was going to be released either the 29th or the 30th. And so she was like, just like freaking out. And so like I think the night before she was supposed to move, she went to stay with an aunt or something like that. And, luckily they got her moved out. She left, no incident or whatever. But like he was like harassing her like at some point at her new job, like calling and like just like he would call like 30 times an hour. And he would just keep calling until like she like threatened him like, don't ever call me again, something along those other lines. But one of the most messed up things I think he did, I mean, there was a lot, but one of the things that I was just like, wow. So at some point, the aunt that she did meet, come to find out, she ain't really his aunt. She was the best friend of the mom. And the older brother said, I don't trust that H or B. I don't trust that B. Anyway, that was supposedly the auntie. So this lady at some point called Reesa and was like, what happened? What's going on? He's asking if he could come stay with me, but I'm old and I don't want any trouble like last time. And she's like, last time? Apparently, the auntie had to go testify on his behalf during his first marriage because of that order of protection, or whatever. She's like, I can't do that again. And then she's like, no, it's not like that or whatever. And she's like, but what about the baby? And Reese is like, what baby? And she's like, your son. He said you had a son. And she's like, I had a miscarriage. And the woman this whole time, he'd been telling her that they had a son and she'd been begging him to bring the baby and bring Reesa by, and he would just find an excuse and never would bring them over. And I felt like, oh my God, how could you do that? Everything he put her through. And then anyway. So yeah, so it was captivating to say the least. And she was a really good storyteller. The way she narrated the whole thing, it kept you engaged. And that's why like TikTok has been in shambles since the weekend because of her story. And Legion ain't ish. He's worse than Trish Trash. That guy is horrible. And the internet supposedly found him.
Of course. Of course.
And he's out here talking about Reese's lying on him and that she cheated and that's why he left her and he's going to file a defamation lawsuit and all these things and don't nobody believe Legion because he's a liar. End of story for now. It is one good note. I think Reesa said recently she is going to London after all. She's getting her trip.
Okay, good for her.
Yeah. But, she said this was a traumatic thing that she lived through for, a whole year and a half, basically.
That is
probably true. A little bit longer. Yeah. So, I know this was really long, but I shortened 8 hours worth of content into 40 minutes, y'all. Oh, man. Because it was detailed. It was a lot that Legion said and did.
You should have written a book. Get a lifetime deal.
She's going to get some kind of a deal. I'm sure she will. But, yeah, man. How do you feel about Legion now?
I have no idea. I'm like, what in the Anna Delvey, Dear John kind of nonsense? La Chupadora. For those who don't know, that's a Spanish telenovela with a twin, and then they swap, or they don't really swap. One takes over, and it's just a whole nonsense.
Yeah.
But granted, she had a lot of red flags,
She did.
right?
She did.
But I mean, I think it just sucks that she tried to like, and I think a lot of women do it. She try to pacify things and, hey, let me fix it. Maybe it's all in my head, which is usually not, and just try to make everything work. And, you want to believe that you made the right decision and picking the right partner, and you have these belief systems and you don't want to quit, especially if you're married or in a relationship or whatever. You want to give it all that you have. So to
Yeah.
find out that somebody's a pathological liar and saying y'all have a fake kid, and who is he talking to on the phone, because he has no sisters and he hasn't been talking to his siblings, and he's a VP of condiments. Which condiments? I think it's salt at this point, because I
Hello.
and then like you hate your life so much that you try to emulate your brothers, and it's
Yeah.
just so much. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
how she literally went through like 7 relationships in that one. And let's not even talk
Wait.
about that pandemic time, which was like a whole bunch of people were,
Yeah.
sick, and a lot was going on. So just the shutdown, the pandemic, the climate, just being on lockdown, and you think you found somebody, and they've just been lying to you all this time, which is really, really sad. And like,
Yeah.
and how is she supposed to move on, from all this? That's, I think, something really hard to overcome
Yeah.
for your next relationship. Like, if people, this is what I don't understand. If people want to mess around and pay for services and, have fun, you can do that when you're single.
Yeah.
You're not nobody's holding you accountable for anything, for your actions. Like, why mess up somebody else's life and somebody else's feelings? And, why add a traumatic experience to somebody else? I think the decisions are so simple, and I don't know why people complicate things. I guess we can go on a whole moral aspect, like why people cheat. I, in my opinion, I don't understand it for the
Yeah.
most part, because if you want to mess around, and if you're not fulfilled in your relationship, well, you can end your relationship and do what you want. Clean slate, that's it. People just, I just don't like that people hurt other people,
Mm.
and that's unfortunate for her. But
Oh
she's
yeah.
going to London, which is great. Fulfill your dreams, heal, grow. I hope you find a good man, because girl, you
Whew.
deserve it. You had 7 and 1.
Not 71. Legion 71. Whew. Man. Yes.
Wow.
Yes to everything you said. You know, I, the poor girl, she is very traumatized. And I think she mentioned that, she still has obviously trust issues. One of the ex-wives supposedly came out trying to give her story as well, and
Mhm.
corroborating, some of the stuff that Risa said. I just think that like it was such a difficult time living through the pandemic. Maybe now that we're so many years removed, like people have forgotten, but like that was a crazy time, y'all. So I think a lot of like the red flags I can understand, you know, overlooking them. Um, but I think it was just so crazy. Like, because there were a lot of things where she was like, yeah, well, I mean, but he's doing this and he's paying that, and he couldn't, how would he be
Mhm.
able to afford it? There were some things that like were like, man, how did he make some of this stuff happen? It was definitely strange.
Did he leave
So
her in debt by chance? Because I thought you were gonna bring that in. He's like, he hasn't been paying rent for like 3 years, and everything is, they're bankrupt. That's what I was expecting also.
she didn't mention that. I'm assuming no, because she was able to move, perfectly fine to another place.
Uh,
So, I don't know. I wondered, and I think like a lot of us online still have a lot of questions. Like, wait a minute. We also know that he just liked to use a printer, printing a lot of fake stuff, and obviously knew how to use Google because he also showed her a screenshot of his bank account. He pretended like he was showing her his actual bank account, but it was just a screenshot of a $9,000 balance on his bank account. So she's like, "Well, he has money," like it was these little things that were going on, and yeah, I think it played a big role. Obviously, the time period. Obviously, the world was going through a pandemic, and also she was someone who, admittedly, she said these were her beliefs. This is, what she was aspiring to, and this is what she'd wanted,
Mm,
and what she didn't want. So I definitely could understand. But yeah, man, it's been a tough, I think, journey for her. And the
yeah.
main reason she wanted to tell the story was if it could help at least one person. That's what she said. So
Mm,
hopefully, some good can come of it. At the very least, she's getting to go to London. I'm happy for her. I think everybody on the internet is happy for her. But yeah, Legion is horrible.
all
Horrible.
right. So, ladies or gents, this is what you got to do, okay? One, get a background check. I know this is all going to sound very creeperish, but just listen to this experience. I feel like
Yeah.
we are in a day and age where people pose and pretend like they don't have things, and we now meet people online, which is something
Hmm.
that didn't happen in the past. In the past, people used to court or meet, in different places. So now you're meeting somebody online and developing these relationships. You're not getting the vibe,
Yeah.
before, you know, whatever. So go check all of them
Hmm.
beforehand, see if everything's okay. Or
Yeah.
if it's not, are you okay with whatever the situation is? And
Yup.
two, trust your gut, because if something ain't
Yes,
right, you know, something ain't right, the math ain't mathing, then there's something wrong. So
for sure.
that's my
Agree.
suggestions for y'all, for me, for
Best
the
advice.
for everybody. And if it sounds creeperish, well, too bad, because I don't want no legion in my vicinity, in my city, in my country. Go to Pluto, far away. Okay,
Not Pluto. Send Legion over there.
guys. But if you watch the whole 8 hours, you said it was.
It had to have been because it was about 10. It was, I want to say they said something about 500 and something minutes worth of content. Yeah, it was quite a bit.
If y'all watched all that, let us know in the comments. What do you think? What should she have done? What are you doing to protect yourself? What do you
Ooh,
think of Legion? And tell me his info, because I want to look him up too, and like
this
see what he's all up to. What? I'm curious. But that concludes today's episode. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Also, please share our video. We're trying to grow our community so your friends can be our friends and we can all be friends. But we ain't Legion's friend though.
no.
We also have social media, which Steele tell you about.
We are on TikTok and Instagram at Hear Me Out DNE. So make sure you guys like, follow, share, and subscribe to this channel. Also comment on our socials because we enjoy interacting with y'all.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.